2 Samuel chapter 18. And David counted the people who were with him and appointed captains of thousands and hundreds over them. David then divided the army into 3 groups. 1/3 of the troops were placed under the command of Joab, 1/3 under the command of Abishai, Joab's brother, and 1/3 under the command of Ittai the Gittite. The king told the people, "I will surely march out with you myself." But the people insisted, "You must not go out, for if we flee, they will not care about us. Even if half of us die, they will not be concerned, but you are worth 10,000 of us. It is better now for you to support us from the city." The king answered, "I will do whatever seems best to you." So the king stood beside the gate as all the troops marched out in groups of hundreds and thousands. The king commanded Joab, Abishai, and Ittai, "Treat the young man Absalom gently for my sake." And all the troops heard the king's orders to all the commanders regarding Absalom. So the troops went out into the field to face Israel, and the battle took place in the forest of Ephraim. The people of Israel were defeated by David's men, and the slaughter there was vast that day, 20,000 men. The battle spread out over the whole countryside, and the forest claimed more lives that day than the sword. Absalom happened to come upon David's men. Now Absalom was riding on his mule, and as the mule went under the tangled branches of a large oak, his head got caught in the tree. He was left hanging in midair, while the mule he was riding kept going. Someone reported to Joab, "I just saw Absalom hanging in an oak tree." Joab said to the man who had informed him, "What? You saw him? Why didn't you strike him to the ground right there? I would have given you 10 shekels of silver and a belt." The man replied to Joab, "Even if I had the weight of 1,000 shekels of silver in my hand, I would not raise my hand against the king's son. For we heard the king command you, Abishai and Ittai, protect the young man Absalom for me. If I had jeopardized my own life, and nothing is hidden from the king, you would have abandoned me." Joab said, "I'm not going to waste time with you." He then took 3 spears in his hand and thrust them into Absalom's heart, while he was still alive in the oak tree. Then 10 young men who were Joab's armor-bearers surrounded Absalom, struck him, and killed him. Joab then blew the ram's horn, and the troops broke off their pursuit of Israel because Joab restrained them. They took Absalom, threw him into a large pit in the forest, and piled a huge mound of stones over him. And all Israel fled, each to his tent. While he was alive, Absalom had set up a pillar for himself in the king's valley, for he had said, "I have no son to preserve the memory of my name." So he gave the pillar his name. It is called Absalom's monument to this day. Then Ahimaaz the son of Zadok said, "Let me run now and bring the king news that the Lord has vindicated him against his enemies." But Joab said to him, "You are not the one to bring news today. You may do so another day, but today you shall not bear news because the king's son is dead." Then Joab said to the Cushite, "Go, tell the king what you have seen." The Cushite bowed to Joab and took off running. But Ahimaaz son of Zadok said yet again to Joab, "Come what may, please let me also run after the Cushite." Joab replied, "Why do you want to run, my son, since you won't get a reward for the news?" "Come what may," he said, "I want to run." So Joab said, "Run!" Then Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain and outran the Cushite. Now David was sitting between the 2 gates, and the watchman went up to the roof of the gate by the wall. As he looked, he saw a man running alone. The watchman called out and told the king. The king said, "If he is alone, he bears good news." As the runner came closer, the watchman saw another man running, and he called out to the gatekeeper, "Look, another man is running alone. This one is also bringing good news." Said the king. The watchman said, "It seems to me that the first runner's stride is like Ahimaaz son of Zadok's." "He's a good man," the king said. "He comes with good news." Ahimaaz called out and said to the king, "Peace." Then he bowed down before the king with his face to the ground and said, "Blessed be the Lord your God. He has delivered up the men who raised their hand against my lord the king." The king asked, Is the young man Absalom all right? Ahimaaz answered, I saw a great commotion when Joab sent the king's servant and me your servant, but I don't know what it was. Step aside and stand here, the king told him. So he stepped aside and stood still. Then the Cushite arrived and said, May my lord the king receive good news, for the Lord has vindicated you today by delivering you from all who rose up against you. Is the young man Absalom all right? The king asked. The Cushite replied, May the enemies of my lord the king and all who rise up against you with intent to harm you be like that young man. The king was deeply moved and went up to the chamber overlooking the gate. He wept, and as he walked he cried out, Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom! If only I had died instead of you, O Absalom, my son, my son!